Hi, and welcome back to my channel. About a week ago, I did a diamond painting whip and chat while I discussed some of the books that I've been reading. So I thought before I talk about the books, I'd kind of show you my progress on Mountain Castle. This is a DAC diamond painting. It's 98 centimeters by 70 centimeters and it has 56 colors. I am working a square at a time. And except with this diamond painting, like when I got to this row, I still had this strip at the bottom, which is about maybe a third or a little bit more than a third of one of these 5x5 squares. So what I did was that whole strip all the way across the bottom, and then I worked a square at a time. And I'm working I just finished the square just now. There are some drills missing, but the drills that are missing were because there weren't enough in the kit, and Diamond Art Club is sending me some more. So I'm about to work on this square. So I'm going to now try to adjust my iPad. So now I am working on this square, and I'm going to have a seat while I first begin to gather some drills for the next section I'm about to begin, and talk to you about the books that I have read since that last whip and chat video. So as I said, I work in 5x5 squares with the Zazasu parchment paper, and I have to just ignore the part that's not done because I'm waiting for more drills to come. But I thought, you know, I haven't done any more book review videos in the last couple of days, which I do have some that I would like to make, but at least I would tell you a little bit about the books that I've been reading. And some of these books I will tell you about in this video, and then some of them I will tell you about in individual video reviews. But to get started, let's see, the next color I need is the up arrow, so I'm going to grab that. I do have a legend in front of me, but on my right where my drills are, they're in numerical order, and the sticker has the symbol, so I usually just use that because after going through drills after a few times, you start to know where your drills are. So I don't really use the legend, but I'm going to work on that arrow, and I will fill you in on what I have read this month so far. I have read 35 books. I'm currently 47% into book number 36, which is The Invisible Woman by Erica Roebuck. The Invisible Woman, I'll tell you about that briefly, but more so when I do another wrap-up. It's about a woman who joins the resistance against the Germans when the Nazis invaded, I believe, Paris. And she has a very, very dangerous job, and I did stop to make this video, and then I will go ahead and finish that book sometime today. So to get started, the first book that I read that I'll talk about in this video is The Perfect Guest by Emma Rous. Now, some of the books that I read aren't out yet, and some of them are, but The Perfect Guest is out for release, and I believe I've already done a video review of this book, but in case you haven't seen it, I'll just give you a little bit of an idea about it, because although I've made a video review, I have not yet written the book review for my blog yet, which is kind of silly because I usually write the review and then do the video, but I did it backwards for this book. But basically, this book is about a girl who became orphaned, and at first she was taken in by her aunt, but it was very clear to her that her aunt did not want her, and then she was taken in by a family. But the oddness was the family I should say also that the family, I think she was 14, had a daughter her same age, and they hit it off quite well. But the family who lived in the UK, the grandfather or the of the family that took her in, the man's father lived in the U.S., but whenever he would come to visit the family in the UK, something strange was happening. And what was happening was, first of all, the man had never met his granddaughter. And the granddaughter is the family in which the young girl, and by the way, her name is Beth Soames, the 14-year-old girl in that family had never met her grandfather, but for some odd reason, the parents that had taken the teenager in, Beth, says, okay, we want you to pretend to be this other girl. And so the few times, I gotta clip my canvas to my, excuse me for hitting the iPad. We want you to pretend to be this other girl for the sake of the grandfather. There was a very, very interesting reason. Of course, they didn't tell her the reason, or even us, the reader, the reason, and it will take quite some time as you read this book to figure that out. So she plays the role of this girl. So it's a dual timeline story, and so the first part of the story took place in 1988, and we fast forward to 2019, and now we meet a woman named Sadie Langton, and Sadie is a struggling actress, and she gets an invitation to join a murder game, like a house party where they'll all have roles to play while they try to solve what would originally be set out to be a fake murder. Well, there was a reason that Sadie was invited to play this role. I mean, the role included changing her appearance, her clothing, the way she styled her hair, and things of that nature. So the question begs the reader, what is the connection between Beth Soames in 1988 and Sadie Langton in 2019? And that's pretty much the setup of the book, which I gave 5 stars to. I found it to be a really good story. I loved spending my hours while reading this book looking for the connection between the two stories, and also looking for the reason that Beth was told to pretend that she was somebody that she was not. So I really enjoyed the book. I gave it 5 stars, and as I said, on this channel is a little bit of a more detailed book review, even if I've repeated a bunch of things that I just said. So that was the first book of the last book of the second week of January for me. And then as I moved into week 3, the next book, that I read was The Other Mothers, and The Other Mothers was by M.M. Chouinard, and I think I also did a video review of this book already. And this book was a really good book, and it was the 4th book in the Detective Joe Fournier series. And in this book, Joe gets assigned a case of a little girl that went missing on the playground and was later found dead. The little girl was 5 years of age, and this really was a very difficult case for Joe, especially because she had a lot of suspects to interview. One of the people that she didn't trust from the very beginning was the young girl's mother, and even possibly her father. And so there was that drama trying to ascertain what was going on in that family. And then also there was a test of friendship, because the girl's mother, her friend Karen, was volunteering at the playground to watch over the children at the break. I don't think they actually call it recess there in the UK, but to watch over the children on the playground. And so the mother and and the lady that was responsible for the children, they have some friction because there was a level of guilt there. So that was a bit of the drama in the story. And then there was Jo herself and how she handled the investigation. I did not only do a video review of this book, but I also did a book review on my blog for a blog tour. And one thing that I said I might have said this in my video review, but I certainly said it in my blog tour book review, is I read a lot of psychological thrillers, maybe 150 to 200 per year. And you get to expect certain twists and turns when you read books. Well, the twist that came in this book, I could not have guessed it if you offered me $1 million. And so the ingenuity behind that twist was really intriguing, and I found it to be a really good book. I think I gave it 4 stars. There's a reason, but it's not like a negative rating, but it was a book that I gave 4 stars to. Then I read Before She Wakes by Ed James. This was for a blog tour as well. And so I believe this review is already on my blog. And it's called the Detective Max Carter series. Okay, it looks like I haven't written the review yet. Or I probably have written a summary, but not the actual review. So maybe the blog tour date hasn't come up yet. I have to check my blog. But in any case, it's called the Detective Max Carter series, but he's an FBI supervisory special agent. So I'm not clear on why they call it that, but anyway, Max is a specialist for finding missing children, and that's what this case is about. My cat is driving me nuts. Leave it. Get down. Excuse me 1 minute. Get down. Okay, sorry. He specializes in locating missing children, and the case that he has here is a mother gets up one morning and goes to wake up her teenager and discovers that she's missing. And the question is, did she run away or was she abducted? And as Max begins to investigate the disappearance of the girl, there's a scenario going on that might indeed explain why she's not around. So while Max is investigating this disappearance, as the series has been developed, and this is the 3rd book, and I did read the first 2, we have been learning a bit more about Max each time in each book. Well, in this particular book, his history about why he specializes in looking for missing children is explored. And it involves something that happened to him in his childhood and the way his memories are. And that's, I don't want to talk too much about that because I don't want to spoil it. But if you like continuity and you like introspective characters whose past lives affect what they do as far as like in police work or whatever, then I think this book is really, really good. And I enjoyed over the course of the series so far getting to know more about Max, what drives him, and how it makes him so good at his job. So again, either I have already written the review and didn't put it on NetGalley, but in any event, I think it was a really good book, and I gave that one 4 stars. Then I read Lethal Protector by Kaylea Cross, and no, I have not written this book review yet. But I'll get to it. I'm not really good about getting my reviews written promptly, but don't worry. Despite my backlog, they always get written. And what we learn, I should tell you, this is the 3rd book in the Rifle Creek series. And I believe I read the first 2, and I'm just going to check really quickly to see if I did. I didn't read the first one, which was Lethal Edge, but I did read Lethal Temptation, which was a 2nd book, and then here this is Lethal Protector. Well, this one is about a single mom who lost her leg during the war, and she's training for either the Paralympics or the Special Olympics. They could be one and the same. And while she's training, she gets help from, her name is Tala Baldwin, and she gets help from her friend Sergeant Braxton Hilliard. Now, the thing about Tala and Braxton is when they were serving, he saved her life. But he went on to continue to serve in the armed forces, and she went off to heal, and now she has taken on a different job and joined a different agency, and he eventually joins that same agency. So now they're back in contact with one another. So along the way, it's becoming clear that they have feelings for each other, but her focus is at first is to train for this special activity. But along the way during training, they end up in the crosshairs of a sniper during a blizzard. So they're running for their lives while at the same time exploring their growing feelings for each other. So it's an action-based story almost from page 1. I don't know why I haven't written a review, because the book is very fresh in my mind, and even what I would say in written form is present in my mind. I just haven't quite gotten to writing it yet. So it's, like I said, it's an action-based book. It has a mix of passion, action, and danger, and the drama that involves Tala and how she was injured in the war, and how even though she is an amputee, it hasn't slowed her down one bit. I thought it was a really good story. I think my blog tour is on February 1st, so I need to hurry up and get this book written with the assets. I think I have also an excerpt. I just want to make sure you guys, you can see what I'm doing. I think I also will be putting up an excerpt for this book. So this will be going up on my blog soon, and maybe I'll try to even make a video review for this book. Then the next book I read after Lethal Protector was The Wife Upstairs by Rachel Hawkins. Now, someone asked me if, what is that book? She asked me, does this compare to The Wife Between Us by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Peckington? And no, I mean, yes, there's a couple of similarities between that book. It's been a good year in several months since I read The Wife Between Us, but this book takes on its own story by I'm sorry, I just need to grab, I dropped something, and I got it. Let me grab that. This book takes on its own story. It's about a man who ends up meeting someone, and they become a couple. But along the way, I just want my arrows in this painting. I have arrows that go up and down and arrows that go to the left, so I just needed to double check to make sure I had the right drills. This guy and this woman become a couple, but he has a shroud of guilt around him because his wife, I'm looking for extra drills, 938. Okay, I'm going into my stash of extra drills because that one's going to run out. His wife and her friend at some time ago disappeared, so there's a shroud of guilt as to whether or not he murdered them, even though he was found in the clear. So now he has a new relationship, and these two are becoming a fast couple, and now she's trying to fit in to kind of an exclusive group of high steppers by now becoming really deeply involved with this man. But again, what happened to his wife and her friend? And that's the drama behind this psychological thriller. I thought it was a good story. I gave it 4 stars. I think if the ending had been different, I could have given this one 5 stars, but it was the ending that made it drop down a star. I didn't like the ending, but other than not really liking the ending, the story itself I think was a pretty good story. Then I read The Girl from the Channel Islands. Oh my goodness gracious, what a book. This is for a blog tour that's due tomorrow. I've already written the review, but it's only a draft. But it's about a young girl named Hetty Berku, who's a Jewish girl who fell in love with a German officer during the Nazi occupation. At first, she loses most of her family and is captured, but escapes, and along the way she's in this hot and heavy relationship with this German soldier. Well, the Nazis never ever let up looking for her, so she's in constant danger. Their relationship is in constant danger, and he has to hide, obviously, his relationship with her because they should be enemies. The book is really, really good. I gave it 5 stars because, not only are they in danger from the Nazis and from their forbidden relationship, but, starvation is on the prowl and lives are being lost by the thousands. So this was an excellent, excellent book. I enjoy historical fiction. I find myself quite emotional a lot of times when I'm reading it. I can't imagine what these people had to go through to survive the German occupation in the various countries. As a matter of fact, the book that I'm reading right now that I mentioned earlier, The Invisible Woman, is about the German occupation. So this was a really good book. The author's name, I believe, is Jenny Lecoat, and this review will be going up on my blog tomorrow. And then the next book I read was Someone to Trust by Patricia Davids. And Someone to Trust was, I think that's also for a blog tour. Actually, most of these books I'm talking about are for blog tours. She was a deaf Amish woman whose family was visiting another family in another state, and one of the sons in the family that they were visiting, she was rather drawn to, but she had a previously bad experience with a hearing man, so she decided if she ever married, it would have to be to a deaf man, obviously an Amish man, but it would have to be to someone deaf, because she doesn't think that someone in the hearing world, I really messed up these drills, but I decided to put them down and just go ahead and straighten them up. She can't imagine how a hearing man could ever understand her enough to be a good husband. And that's the basis or the premise of this story. Really, really good story. No, I haven't written the review yet, but I will. And I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. Now, I'm going to jump ahead out of order in which I read, because this book, Someone to Trust, was, I believe, book number 5 in the North Country Amish series. Well, I had read books 1, 2, and 3, which were in Amish Wife for Christmas, Shelter from the Storm, and the Amish Teacher's Dilemma. But book number 4 I had not read, and that's called A Haven for Christmas, and it came out in November. Well, because I didn't realize that I was reading this series out of order, I went to my online library and I got this book and I read it, and I will write a review, and I will attach this review to the blog tour review. And A Haven for Christmas, again, was obviously written by Patricia Davids, because like I said, it was part of this series. And I am looking for it on my spreadsheet, but I looks okay. Yes, I did put it on my my spreadsheet. This book from page 1 made me think of that movie with Harrison Ford, which was called Witness. And it was, I think he was an FBI agent, and he was hiding out among the Amish, and he fell in love with a woman. But, following English and Amish, that's a forbidden thing. You can't be with an Amish person, cannot be with an English person. So, of course, as wonderful and as sweet as the movie that Harrison Ford was in, it didn't have a romantic happily ever after because he had to go on with his life. So when I started A Haven for Christmas, I might have called it something else, but when I think I called it by the right name. I immediately thought about that movie. So I was like, great, I'm finally going to read a book that will tell me whether or not an English man and an Amish woman can fall in love and have a future together. So the book was really, really a good book, another 5-star book for me. And I love how it developed and what brought the English man to the Amish community and how he ended up with the woman. I should tell you their names, shouldn't I? Her name was Becca Beachy, and his name was Tully Lange. And a little background is, as the story opens up, Becca's daughter has the Bobly been born, which is baby, and she was speaking of a calf that was due, that was going to be her calf, and she was anxious for the calf to be born and to name it. And the mother says, no, not yet. You would have known. I would have told you. Well, Tully Lange was having a very difficult time in his life. So he was driving to visit one of the only friends he had left due to his troubled past. And on the drive to his friend, he hits a baby calf, which was the calf that the little girl was anxious to be born. So he picks up the calf and brings it to the family, to the farm, to where the calf must have belonged. And the long and short of it is the family was in dire straits due to an ailing father-in-law. Becca is a widow with a little girl. Her father-in-law is ailing, and Tully just could not leave the family in the dire straits with the sick father-in-law. And in addition to that, he was very, very concerned about the calf he had hit. So he ends up staying on as a worker until the father-in-law gets well. But the question is, since this is an Amish romance, yes, it's Amish fiction, but it's an Amish romance, what could possibly happen between them, considering that is a forbidden love? And I thought it was a really good story. And even though it's not a book for review or for a blog tour, I just had to read it, and I'm really, really glad that I did. But back to the order in which I read the books. Let's see, let me go back to my Goodreads. The next book I read was Blink of an Eye, and this was by Iris Johansen and her son Roy Johansen. Now, Blink of an Eye was, I think, the 8th book in the Kendra Michaels series. And yes, I have read all of the previous books. And in this particular book, Kendra steps in when a young pop star is kidnapped, and the woman's kind of like assistant / bodyguard appeals to Kendra for help to find this young woman. And so Kendra does, and she works with, I think, an FBI agent. Was he an FBI agent? By the way, I can't tell you if the guy was, Adam Lynch is an agent that was hired to help them look for this girl. Now, Kendra Michaels is a unique individual. She was blind for most of her life, but due to a special procedure, her sight was restored some years previously. Well, during the years in which she was blind, she had developed acute skills of observation. And so she is instrumental in trying to help locate this young singer because, again, with her skills being so sharp, she's a very unique individual. And so it was a thrilling story. I love Iris Johansen. I have read all of her series in 2020. And so any books in her Kendra Michaels and the other series, which of course my brain wants to draw a blank on them, I will definitely be reading, and that is called Blink of an Eye, and that one will be out on February 2nd, so I will get that review written and posted and maybe even make a video. I'm not sure if I'm going to make video reviews of these. Then I read Song for a Cowboy. Now, by the way, Blink of an Eye is not for a blog tour, but Song for a Cowboy was for a blog tour, and I still have it as currently reading because I don't want to knock it off here until I write the review. But Song for a Cowboy, let me bring that up. Let me see. I think I want to tell you which one. It's only the second book in the series. The first book, I just had to refresh myself really quickly. It only took a second to do that, but I keep getting these arrows are driving me crazy. I have to keep double checking, making sure that I'm putting the right color on the right arrows. Song for a Cowboy is the second book in the Kings of Country series. I think it's going to be a trilogy, so this is book number 2. Like, book number 1 was Jace, and now this story is Emmylou's story, and there's a brother Travis, so his book should be next. But I think there's another character that I really hope gets a story, so maybe it won't be a trilogy, maybe it'll just be an ongoing series, but who knows. In any event, Emmylou is a country singer with her family, her very, very famous family, and she is also on a charity for teens to help teens avoid drugs. So she's called in to make some special appearances, including singing appearances, but mostly promotional appearances for the sake of the charity. And she's going to be working with someone from her past, and his name is Brock Watson. Now, Brock is a big time, I think he's a center. He's a big football player, very, very powerful football player. And they have a tumultuous past, and now they're thrown together in this for the sake of the charity. Well, along the way, they have obstacle after obstacle, and the biggest obstacle is her mother. And also another obstacle is this is way off. I don't think I'm going to be able to really straighten this out until I get those drills in. Their main obstacle is her mother, but there's other obstacles in their past, which includes the fact that Brock is recovering from a serious injury, and it was that injury that led to a situation in his life that affects whether or not him and Emmylou can ever get together. So I thought it was a really good book. I think my blog tour for this is on the 2nd or the 3rd, so I've got to hurry up and get this review written. And that one I gave 4 stars too. Then I read Cold, Cruel Kiss. Yes, another blog tour title. Do I ever stop doing blog tours? Nope. This was by Toni Anderson, and I'm thinking this is the 3rd book in a series. I've got to go and pull it up on Goodreads, only because I cannot tell you offhand whether it's the 2nd or the 3rd book in a series. I think it's book number 3, and I'll let you know in 1 second. Oh, it's the 4th book. It's in the Crossfire, Cold Justice Crossfire series. And I did read the other ones, which were Cold and Deadly, Colder Than Sin, and Cold Wicked Lies. And this is Cold Cruel Kiss. Now, this was a really good book, 4 stars for me. And it's basically about a girl who was kidnapped. She's the daughter of the U.S. ambassador to Argentina, and she was kidnapped. So the FBI sends in a good negotiator, and his name is, he's a supervisory special agent, Max Hawthorne. He comes in to look for I'm not even diamond painting. He comes in to try to rescue this girl that was kidnapped, and he's paired with the ambassador's kind of like assistant. And he sees her as a plain drab woman who kind of fades into the background, and he's really not sure why. So his job is to find this girl before she's harmed or worse, and work with this woman, and the woman that he's working with is, what's her name? Lucy Aston. So they end up working together, and it's a romantic suspense, so there's definitely a romantic element of the story, but I found the suspense to be very, very intriguing and very easy to follow and rather exciting. Hoping for this young woman to be recovered safely. And that was Cold Crew Kiss. I'm sorry, Toni Anderson, fourth book in the in a series, and I'm eager to get that book review written. And then I read Meant to Be by Jude Devereaux. Now, Meant to Be, I don't think will be out until maybe the third week of March. But I really was encouraged to read this book by my friend Fashawn. She first of all, on the first day she started telling me about this book. I let her tell me a little bit about it. And then the next day when we talked, she started telling me a little bit too much about it. And I'm like, wait, let me go ahead and see if I've already downloaded it. Because we get books off of NetGalley, and sometimes we download books in common. So I'm like, yes, I have it, but it's not coming out until March 16th, so it's not in my TBR. But Fashawn has a hard time not talking about the books we read, so I said, wait, stop. I will read the book and we will talk about it tomorrow. Well, I read the book straight through, and you better believe it, Fashawn and I chewed this book up. Even though I think I'm doing a blog tour for this book, but whether or not I'm doing a blog tour for it, it won't be out until the middle of March. But basically, the title is telling, Meant to Be. It's about two sisters whose lives were carved out in front of them with certain expectations. Now, the oldest sister, older by 10 months or 11 months, the older sister, Vera, felt a strong sense of responsibility for her widowed mother and her sister, Kelly. I think the young girl was named Kelly. Yeah, the other girl was named Kelly. So Kelly is in vet school, and Vera does not want to leave to fulfill her dreams of traveling the world as an activist in the Peace Corps until her sister is settled. So her sister is months away from graduation, and now Vera has a chance on starting the life that she has been dreaming of for years. Along the way, the boy that she had been seeing since, her boyhood, how should I say it? His name is Adam, and they were together from the time they were kids. Now, Adam got to go to Africa and build schools and homes and hospitals and all the kinds of things that Vera wants to do. Adam got to do, but Adam's father has died, and he's come back home to kind of guide his younger brother Robbie until he gets into college, because Robbie has been getting into trouble over and over again. So as soon as Adam comes back, two things happen. The first thing that happens is him and Vera get back hot and heavy as if they had never been apart, and they start making plans for her traveling with him once Kelly is established. That's the path that they set. Meanwhile, Kelly is on her own path, and she's dating someone who his name is Paul, and it looks like they're going to get married. That's why the book is called Meant to Be. Vera and Adam are meant to get married, and Polly and Kelly are meant to get married. Everything looks like it's going to work out. However, nothing works out the way that they had planned. And this is all back in 1972. Now, I'm not going to tell you what happens, but I will tell you this. The book does a time jump, I think, to like 1991. And then we see a different story based on what happened back in 1972. That part of the story is told, and then there's another time jump to the present, and there's part of that story being told, all along the lines of the title meant to be, the words in the title meant to be. So it's a multi-generational story, and it's one that caught me by surprise. It's also one that taught me not to judge a situation until it was fully made clear to me. And let me tell you, Jude Devereaux, I know my mom used to read her. So how she managed to write such a fabulous story, which, yes, I am giving this book 5 stars too once I write the review, is just amazing to me. It's a very, very good story, one that teaches you not to make assumptions, because sometimes your assumptions might lead you down the wrong path. So that was Meant to Be by Jude Devereaux. Again, it won't be released until March 16th. I'm getting to the end of talking about all these books that I have been reading. The next book I read was Reunited on Dragonfly Lane, and this one was by Annie Raines. And I did just write the book review for this book this morning, and this was a second chance story where a woman, why am I drawing a blank on her name? I just finished the book yesterday. I have to cheat, guys. His name was Chase, I can tell you that much. And her name is Sophie. Now, Chase and Sophie, now I remember the whole story. I just had to peek and grab her name. Jace and Sophie were a wonderful high school a couple who fell in love in high school, and it looked like, am I all done with these, with the symbol I'm looking for? Okay, I see a couple more. Jace and Sophie, Chase, not Jace. Chase and Sophie were dating in high school, and it looked like their future was mapped out ahead of them. However, Sophie got hurt. They used to like to climb. They were climbers. And Sophie got hurt, and in her pain and agony, she drove Chase away. So Chase goes away to college. He goes to veterinary school, becomes a vet, and their lives went in completely different directions. Well, years later, Chase's brother, which is not part of the story really, but Chase's brother goes to prison. So Chase decides he wants to be there for his ex-sister-in-law and her little boy. And so he comes back to town, and he becomes the town vet. Well, Sophie's driving one day, and she accidentally hits a dog. And so she rushes the dog to the only vet in town, and that happens to be Chase. Well, it takes 0.2 seconds for Chase and Sophie to realize that the connection they had is still hot and heavy. However, there was some trauma and drama in their lives that, even though the spark between them was still strong, there were some mountains that they had to overcome in order for them to have any chance of a future together. And that was a very good story. I gave it 4 stars. That that review just went up on my blog today, and it's the 7th book in the Sweetwater Spring series. I think I read the first 5. I did not get to read book 6, but I went ahead and read this one. I do have the 6th book in print in my other room. I just went ahead and read this one so I could just go ahead and get it read close to release date. And then the last book that I read, I have no idea how long this video is, or even if it's still going on. Let's see. Oh, 42 minutes. Wow. Okay. The last book that I read in this wrap up will be Murder in the Belltower by Helena Dixon. It's the 5th book in the Miss Underhay mysteries, and it's a cozy mystery. I really love this series, and it's a kind of historical. It's a historical book because it's back in 1933, and the first few books of the series, Miss Underhay, which her name is Kitty, is just always on the spot to solve murders. She has taken over management of a hotel with her grandmother, but she keeps being in the right place at the wrong time, or the wrong place at the right time, however you want to put it, and is solving murders. Well, this one's a bit different. It's a house party with her aunt and uncle and her cousin, and one of the guests at the house party is a man that she is now officially dating. His name is he's Captain Matthew Bryant, and now they're at this house party, and like usual in these Miss Underhay mysteries, there's a murder, but there's an underlying reason that Matt is there that Kitty doesn't know. So the story takes on, a really nice air, if you like cozy mysteries, to where they're trying to figure out what happened to the victim, and we learn more about whether or not Kitty and Matt are going to end up as, whether or not their relationship will grow. And when I say relationship will grow, in the confines of something that was written based in their mid 1930s, where propriety is at stake, like dressing for dinner and things of that nature. So I really love this story, and I love this series, and I'm going to continue reading it, and if you like golden age cozy mystery stories, then I would say definitely you want to read this one because it's a good one. So that's all I got done on this diamond painting. Just basically this one color and a little bit of this color. I'm sorry, too busy talking to really focus on that. And I usually fly through my squares, but not so, I guess, when I'm talking. So that's it. So that brings me to 35 books. As I mentioned, I'm reading book number 36. And I will kind of give you an idea what's coming up for me for the next few books. Are going to be 3 books in a series by Nina Crespo. I have the Cowgirl Surprise Match for Blog Tour for February 5th. So I grabbed the first 2 books in that series from my library last night, and that's called The Cowboy's Claim and Her Sweet Temptation. So I'll be reading those 3. Then I have Silent Wives by Patricia Gibney, which is probably the 5th or 6th book in a series that I've been reading by her. Then I have The Girl from the Mountains. Have no idea what that's going to be about. And then my next couple of books are going to be by Janet Ivanovich. I'll be reading Hard 8, which is the 8th book in the Stephanie Plum series. I'm trying to read that series this year. And then I'm going to read her Fox and O'Hare series. I'm going to start the first 2 books in that series, and that is The Shell Game and Pros and Con. And then I'm going to go on to my next couple of books in the Orphan X series by Greg Hurwitz, and that will be The Intern and Out of the Dark. So I'll leave you with that, and I will end this video, and I will edit it to include some of the book covers that I talked about so far. And I want to thank you for your time, and I do apologize for not getting much done with this diamond painting. All right, bye-bye.